Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. The manhunt for the person who gunned down UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a Manhattan sidewalk on December the 4th ended at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania early this week. Joining me with more on this story is the Center Square's Pennsylvania editor, Kristen Smith. Kristen, what are the latest developments on this story?
I don't think anyone would have thought that a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania would have cracked the case of who shot and killed Brian Thompson in New York City. The murder was especially brazen, I think, because we could all watch it unfold, not live, but unfold on CCTV footage that was taken right outside of the Hilton Hotel in Manhattan. Thompson was walking towards the hotel because there was a conference, a health insurance conference there. And so it was shortly before 7 a.m. and a slender man with a hoodie on appears from seemingly nowhere, from between some cars, raises a gun and shoots Thompson in the back. And then the gun jams a few times, but then he is seen shooting him several more times. And we all know the story now that Thompson died and that this man escaped into the city, into Central Park, and was on the run for 5 days. And in fact, New York City police released tons of stills captured from security cameras all over the city in the days leading up to the murder, showing who this person was, showing his face. They had found items he discarded near the crime scene, such as a water bottle, and they had found something from an energy bar, I believe, is what he was eating. There was reports that they found the very distinctive backpack that he was wearing in the murder footage. And so there was a lot of optimism that this suspect would be found rather quickly. And as it turns out, he was, but not necessarily thanks to the NYPD, but because of people who were at a McDonald's in Altoona. Altoona is very much in the center of the state. Most people probably wouldn't know, aside from those who live here, where geographically it is. It's a few hours southwest of New York City. And as the story goes, a McDonald's employee called the police there around 9-ish in the morning because of a suspicious man that was sitting in the restaurant with a mask on. He looked a lot like the security footage that had been disseminated across the country at this point. And when police made contact with him, he gave them false identifying information and a fake ID. And when they ran that ID, they realized that it was not a real person and that was not who he is. And they said that they asked him, has he been to New York City recently? At which point he started to visibly shake. And so he was arrested. He was charged in Pennsylvania with forgery, with providing false identification, and for having a gun without a license. This is presumably the gun that was used in the crime. And so this was major news on Monday. It all seemed to happen very quickly. He was jailed in Altoona. He's currently fighting extradition back to New York City.
How have people in general reacted to these events, and what has Governor Shapiro's response been?
Authorities came out pretty early on and made the connection that his death was likely connected to his role as the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. And that was later confirmed once the suspect, Luigi Mangione, was arrested. They found a manifesto of sorts on him that really dove into this ideological perspective that he has, that the healthcare industry is very harmful, parasitic, and that there needed to be a retribution for his believed harm that the system has done to the American people. And this perspective of his has garnered support, a small amount of support, but a very vocal amount of support, mostly online, from people who are hailing him more like a hero, who are making very cheeky comments about the fact that he's young and fit and attractive. There is even people who are donating to his legal defense, which appears to be more of a symbolic choice rather than a genuine concern that he doesn't have the money to pay for legal defense. He comes from a very wealthy family in Baltimore. He's got 2 degrees from the University of Pennsylvania. It's an Ivy League school. So certainly the man is not hurting for money here. But his motivation, which he's been very clear about for committing this murder, is something that has resonated with people. Now, it's disingenuous to assume that everybody who may have direct experience or know someone else who does with the inherent unfairness of our healthcare industry, that they also support murdering this man as a result. Both can be true, that the healthcare industry is in dire need of reform and leaves a lot of people without the care that they need. And also murdering this man was not the answer. However, that seems to be getting lost in the conversation as the online support for this suspect has really gained more and more media attention. In fact, the more that comes out about him, the more you see that support growing. And it's unusual for such a high-profile case to have such ardent and shameless support simply because the person who died was a wealthy CEO of a company that exists in an industry that they feel is unfair. And for Shapiro's part, he spoke at a Monday evening press conference in Altoona where he called out this sentiment directly. He described how the suspect viewed himself as a vigilante who was getting justice for everybody who has struggled in the healthcare system to get the care that they need or to pay for the care or to get their medicines. How many people have been harmed or died because of insurance issues? His point is that there's no justifiable reason to murder someone just because you disagree with the industry that they work in, that there's no opinion that matters so much that it's worth taking somebody else's life. And he was very emphatic about this. It was words that had not entirely been spoken by an official on the record in the days that happened. Perhaps that's because police weren't dying to make that direct connection, although they strongly suspected that that's the entire impetus behind the murder. What you're seeing, though, even after he's been arrested, is that other CEOs of other large companies are concerned and upping security in the wake of this attack. You'll even see news reports of flyers throughout New York City, for example, that once had Brian Thompson's face on it and were looking in connection with the crime and asking for information. But now there's other flyers going up that have pictures of other CEOs and with their information about where to find them. So the reaction here is really unprecedented for what we are used to for a story of this magnitude. And Shapiro directly called this out as deeply disturbing. And he encouraged people to speak and to think more rationally about this and to never incite further violence just because they may have a very strong feeling about the injustice they have faced through the healthcare industry.
Well, Kristen, thank you for your insights on this story. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.